Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahabushai, Bahasham, Barakahak Wadash, Barakatum. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahabushai. Double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone who ruled and teach well. In peace and salutations to you sincere Akim out there, pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure unto the end. This is the brother Ra'aya with another video. And in this video, I'll be profiling a little bit of this clip from Redacted's YouTube channel titled, NATO is making a deadly mistake and World War III will look unlike anything we've ever seen. And hey, World War III will happen. It's all a part of biblical prophecy. This is Revelation chapter 9, verse 12, which it seems like damn near close to every lesson I go into now. I'm using this Revelation 9 and 12 in it because these are the times we're living in. One woe or destruction is past, referring to World War I, and behold, there come two woes more hereafter. World War II, which is past, and World War III, which, you can make the case that we're already in World War III. We haven't gotten to the ultimate, culmination of it, the final confrontation, which is going to take place in the Valley of Jehoshaphat over in the so-called Middle East, really Western Asia, the battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat, the War of Armageddon, which you can read about in Joel chapter 3. But all these different things we're seeing right now, with Ukraine, with Taiwan, etc., are wars and rumors of wars. This is Matthew chapter 24, verse 6. And this is Yahawashi, the Son of the Most High, whom the world ignorantly refers to as so-called Jesus, telling his disciples of some of the signs to look for to know that they were living in the last days before his second coming. And, we are currently living in the last days, the last seconds of the last days, because all these different signs are either in the process of taking place or taking place as we speak. And ye shall hear of wars, the war in Ukraine, and rumors of wars, war with Taiwan, war between Iran and Israel, war between Russia and NATO, etc. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. And hey, we're just in the beginning of sorrows of these things. It's only going to intensify from here on out. And you're going to know that we truly are at the end when the MARKOFTHEBEAST in Revelation chapter 13, verses 16 to 18, which is the RFID/NFC C-hip implant is mandatorily implemented. That's when the Valley of Jehoshaphat is going to take place afterwards. And in the midst of that, nuclear missiles are going to be flying, and Yahawashi is going to make his second coming to save the elect of the nation of Israel. The nation of Israel consisting of you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, as well as the Israelite foreigners who have come to look like these heathen nations through generations of being scattered amongst them and, mixing amongst them. And Yahawashi is also going to make war against these heathens, chiefly the biblical Edomites, or these so-called white people. And what inspired this lesson was a lesson that the elder Malcolm of the Chicago camp did. He used this very same redacted clip. And I guess, you can consider this a skillful adding unto that lesson. But this is a fair use copyright disclaimer. I do not own any of the footage in this clip, nor do I stand to gain from it monetarily. It is simply for educational purposes.
Have you ever wondered what World War III might look like? Well, newsflash, it's about to look a whole lot different than what we expect. Forget missiles and tanks. I mean, sure, that'll be there, but the real battlefield is much less flashy. And CNN is going to be pissed that they can't send reporters to the war zone so they can wear those little green helmets and show off explosions.
We want to roll the video right before he was supposed to go on the air.
I'd say
No, this war has already started in the shadows, over resources, over commodities, and it's hitting much closer to home in a big way right now. We'll get there in a minute, but first, NATO, led by the United States and Britain, are preparing for direct war with Russia, and some NATO members don't...
Wars and rumors of wars. And this next bit, is another part of biblical prophecy. The nation of Esau, Edom, and his system, his kingdom, being divided against each other. And what does it say in Mark chapter 3, verses 24 to 25? And if a kingdom be divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. And as we're about to see, not all members of NATO are on board with, the NATO bloc going against Russia. A lot of them have, economic and political ties with Russia, which a war would just completely, wreck that, which that's already been taking place. And if a house be divided against itself, that house cannot stand. The house or the nation or the race of Esau, Edom being divided, which we can clearly see. You've got these European and American Edomites against these Edomites in Russia. You've got a lot of America's allies, them starting to look at America funny because they're always the ones feeling the blowback from American military adventurism abroad. Hey, you've got these Edomites in America divided against each other, which there will be a second civil war in the United States, etc., etc. And as I said, if a kingdom be divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. And if a house be divided, that house cannot stand. We are living in the twilight hours of Esau, Edom's rulership before he's taken out of power and goes into his rightful position underneath the feet of the children of Israel as slaves in the kingdom of heaven. But let's get back to this clip.
Don't want to have anything to do with it. Those aren't my words. Those are the words of Hungary's prime.
Rewind it.
But first, NATO, led by the United States and Britain, are preparing for direct war with Russia. And some NATO members don't want to have anything to do with it. Those aren't my words. Those are the words of Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orban this weekend.
And Hungary is a member of both NATO and the EU.
A NATO member who knows exactly what NATO is up to. A hot war is coming, and he doesn't want his men being killed in a fool's errand. According to the Prime Minister, he says there are alarming similarities right now between what is being said and prepared right before the start of World War I and World War II. And he wants...
Hey, one woe is past, and behold, there come two woes more hereafter.
Out of it. For a NATO Prime Minister to say this is a huge deal, guys. Orban says NATO was created with the purpose of defending member states against aggressors, not waging wars outside of its territory. So what are these worrying developments this weekend? Well, according to the New York Times,
Let's go to Daniel chapter 2. I'm going to start at verse 40. And this is dealing with the statue that King Nebuchadnezzar of the ancient Neo-Babylonian Empire saw of a man made of different metals, which are symbolic for the heathen kingdoms that would rule before the kingdom of heaven under the children of Israel. And you had the head of gold, which were the Neo-Babylonians, the arms and the breasts of silver, the Medo-Persian Empire, the belly and the thighs of brass, the Grecian empires, which were what? Started by Alexander the Macedonian, Alexander the Edomite, or Alexander the Great as he's known today, and the legs of iron, the extension, of the Greeks, the ancient pagan Roman Edomite Empire. And a Blue Letter Bible has been adding, little headers to these different chapters. And what do we have? Rome, Daniel 2, verse 40. And the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron, for as much as iron breaketh in pieces and subdueth all things. And as iron that breaketh all these, shall it break in pieces and bruise. And now we're coming into the feet, part of iron, part of miry clay. And whereas thou sawest the feet and the toes, the last leg, literally, of the ancient pagan Roman Empire, this current system that we're living in, this NATO EU system that the U.S. is a part of and at the head of, the reincarnated Roman Empire. And whereas thou sawest the feet and toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron. And that part of clay and part of iron can go into the part of clay being the EU, the economic part of this system, which is the weaker part, and the part of iron, the NATO structure, the military aspect. And it can also go into what the weaker and stronger nations within this bloc, you have something called the PIGS, which stands for Portugal, Italy, Ireland, Greece, and Spain, which are known as the weaker economic and military nations in this NATO EU system. And of course, your part of iron would be the stronger nations like what? Britain, France, Germany, the US. And whereas thou sawest the feet and toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided. And if a kingdom be divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. And what have we just seen that a redacted clip? Viktor Orban, the leader of Hungary, is at odds with NATO for trying to push for war against Russia. And as things intensify more and more out here, you're going to see even more divisions amongst this NATO EU system. Hey, right now, I believe it was Ireland. All right, let me think. Ireland, Portugal, and I think Norway that said that they would honor the ICC's arrest warrant against Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. But there shall be in it of the strength of iron, for as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay. Hey, that NATO, that military part, which, what did Viktor Orban just say? NATO was originally created just to deal with issues within their border. But now NATO is being used to, wage war outside of Europe's borders and in these other countries. For as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay, and as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. And we're coming into the times to where this structure is going to be completely broken. What does it say? That great stone that was cast and hit the feet of the statue and took the whole thing down, which is symbolic of Yahushua making his second coming to make war against these heathens, chiefly these Edomites, in this NATO EU system that the U.S. is at the head of, and then establish the kingdom of heaven, which will be an eternal kingdom.
It's this. Antony Blinken wants Ukraine to use long-range U.S. weapons to attack deep inside of Russia. Direct war. I wonder where Blinken got that idea. Could it be from Satan herself, Victoria Nuland?
Nations rising against nations, Edomite on Edomite, violence. These Edomites in America going against those Edomites in Russia. And what? War in Ukraine is a nation divided against itself, with those Russian Edomites going against those Ukrainian Edomites.
This week, who essentially demanded that the U.S. help Ukraine attack Russia.
They need to be able to stop these Russian attacks that are coming from bases inside Russia. So I think there's also a question of whether we, the United States and our allies, ought to give them more help in hitting Russian bases, which heretofore we've not been willing to do.
Oh, we're just getting started, because among the other bombshell nuggets in this report, the Biden administration is now actively discussing putting boots on the ground in Ukraine to train Ukrainian soldiers. Quote, the United States is now considering training Ukrainian troops inside the country rather than sending them to training grounds in Germany. That would require putting American personnel in Ukraine, something that Mr. Biden has prohibited until now. Yeah, he's breaking a lot of his promises. Long-range weapons, boots on the ground. The New York Times also exposed how Britain is already doing it. No debate. In the suicidal country of Britain, they're already doing it. Quote, Britain, usually in lockstep with Washington on war strategy, has quietly lifted its own restrictions so that its Storm Shadow cruise systems can be used to target Russia more broadly. Yes, deep inside of Russia. Britain has lost its mind. They want war with Russia so badly they can taste it. This week, they invited Ukrainian neo-Nazi Azov battalion members to UK's parliament to give them a standing ovation. Didn't they learn from Canada when they invited a Nazi to take part in a celebration and give him a standing ovation? But no, Britain didn't. In fact, Boris Johnson was even on hand to take some photos with the neo-Nazis. Here he is holding an Azov banner featuring the wolf's angle symbol, which was, of course, once used by the Nazi Waffen SS division in World War II. That's unbelievable. This is a world gone mad right now. This is absolute madness. And Senator Ted Cruz laid right into Blinken this week on dragging us into World War III.
Mr. Secretary, you have presided over the worst foreign policy disaster of modern times. When Joe Biden became president, he inherited peace and prosperity in the world. We now have two simultaneous wars waging, the worst war in Europe since World War II and the worst war in the Middle East in 50 years. Both, I believe, were caused by this administration's consistent weakness. And indeed, your foreign policy is precisely backwards from what a rational American foreign policy should be.
But as I said at the beginning, this
That's it with this clip, but hey, that's another example of a nation being divided against itself not standing. The United States of America, these Edomites here are divided, as we just saw with Senator Ted Cruz going against Anthony Blinken, saying, look, what you're doing in supporting this war in Ukraine is getting us in the hot seat. And like I said, there will be a second civil war in the United States of America. You just had that movie Civil War come out. This is Isaiah chapter 19, verse 2. And I will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians. And this isn't talking about the ancient Egyptians who were Hamites or so-called Africans, Mizraim. This is talking about the modern day spiritual Egyptians as pursuant to Revelation 11, verse 8. These American Edomites in the United States of America, spiritual Egypt. And I will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians, and they shall fight, everyone against his brother and everyone against his neighbor, city against city and kingdom against kingdom. And I've done a couple of videos over the last couple of months showing that recent polls taken amongst Americans show that they believe that civil unrest and division is coming to the United States of America, which through biblical prophecy, we know that it will. And again, was this ultimately going to mean a kingdom divided against itself shall not stand, and a nation divided against itself, a house divided against itself cannot stand. We are living at the end of Esau Edom's rulership. So that's it with this video. With this video, I hope you sincere Akim and Akwath were edified. Just keep strong. We are almost out of this final wicked captivity of the heathen nations, chiefly of the Edomites. And as always, I'm going to say Abad Babal, Kwam Yasharallah, and until next time, Shalom.